Welcome back, my friends, to the sweet spot where IT leaders share the insight with other leaders and others that want to lead. My name is Carlos Vargas, and as every week, I have my two co-hosts, Holton and Paul Lewis. Hello,
Hey there.
guys.
How's it going? How's it going?
So I'm gonna be freezing my behind. Florida gonna get to 30s.
What? Oh yeah, because of that winter storm that's coming through.
Yeah,
The nor'easter. I don't know what it is.
So it's going to hit us on I think Thursday, and we will have a 1 day high of -1,
Hmm.
-1 F. So that's like -19 or something. See, that will
It's
be our
cold.
yeah.
It's going to be. We're going to get snow next week in Disneyland Paris. Do you feel bad for me?
Horrible. My wife is waving at you, but it's only one finger. I'll let you guess with finger.
It'll be snowing in Paris, but in Naples, apparently it's going to be in the 20s. So at least, at least don't get that. The problem, of course, is that you have to both pack mittens and shorts, right? So there's no. It makes packing twice the much that you normally would do.
anything interesting this week?
Carlos has no transitionary.
I got a new tattoo. For those who don't know, I currently have a tattoo that is a
Yes.
Robert Frost poem. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I've got promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. It's a Robert Frost poem that means a lot. I got a new tattoo today. It says, "Be curious, not judgmental." It's a Walt Whitman quote that I'm trying to always do more of.
Which one? Curious or?
Curious, not judgmental. Although I don't know. I guess it depends on what the topic is that decides how curious versus judgmental
I was still saying that.
Yes. Really, I want to hear Carlos's transition because he doesn't know the topic. So that should be. This is what's most interesting to me.
Are we curious or judgmental when we hear a new idea?
Oh, look at that! We're gonna make it out nice.
All right.
Okay, not a new idea, but as you know, I enjoy my slideware. I created a visual over the last couple of days for the purpose of presenting to an executive committee today. I wanted to have a discussion about the distinct sort of battle in the cloud data platform world between native architectures and platform architectures. So let me give you kind of a difference distinction. So in a native platform architecture, when each one of the clouds, you would be combining data warehouse and data lake. You would string it together with infrastructure as code. You'd use Python for analytical pipelines. You'd string it together and recreate it the way you envision it with your own, roll up the sleeves, do it yourself power. You might entertain marketplace technologies to support that. It might not be entirely native. You might have some agnostic pieces of it, but it's a build your own DIY kind of thing.
Okay.
On the other side of the spectrum is more platform. So these are the snowflakes. These are the Databricks kind of implementation where it's inside the platform. You're mostly engaging the platform via a portal. SQL is the language of choice inside it, geared towards more the business users versus the data science users. However, clearly a big constituency in that world. Limited IAC, limited analytical pipelines because the visual workflow is within the system itself. There tends to be a battle between those two worlds. There's two other spins to that to which I want to hold off for our conversation, but let's start with this battle now. So A, do you agree that those two things exist? And B, do you agree or disagree that it's a battle? And then C, which one would you lean towards in what circumstance?
So, yes, I agree those things exist. Yes, I agree that it's a battle. and the workload should always define the platform or product, right? And almost
This is analytic purposes, right?
yeah, but yeah, and I would say it depends. But the business case often depends how the customer's organized, where in the business the data products are going to be utilized has a lot to do with which one I choose, right? Like if I've got a highly competent, highly mature data science team, I'm going to go with number one more than I'm going to go with number two. If, however, I'm wanting to kind of get a little the closer I get to self-service, probably the more likely something like Snowflake's going to make a difference. A lot of it is I had said a lot of it is it depends, right?
You think it's feature by feature? It depends. Like I agree, Snowflake is very mature in its data sharing capability.
Yeah,
right. In fact, it touts itself as the points of a potential interaction between data consumers and data producers.
well, and how
Databricks does not, right? But
sure. But how am I going to talk to it, right? What language am I going to use? What kind of outputs am I looking for? Am I looking for like products that are an evolution of something I would have done with a data warehouse or a BI tool, or am I looking for something totally different and new for my organization, right? Is it more programming or more business logic? Is it more, you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a lot of kind of gray in between which one do you use. And even though everybody would like to say that it's just one or the other, right? Like Snowplow would love to say that, no, we can replace everything in your data environment with Snowplow. And I just don't think it's true. I don't think it's accurate. I think there's a lot of kind of gray space there that you kind of have to feel through yourself a little bit.
And the reliance on the actual hyperscaler is dramatically different between the two, right? So on the left-hand side, on the native side, the goal of the hyperscaler is to increase consumption.
The goal of the
Whereas,
hyperscaler is increase consumption and improve lock-in.
correct. Yeah. On the
Right.
right-hand side, it's lock-in by nature that it's a platform. But on the right-hand side, the hyperscaler is sort of secondary. In fact, you don't necessarily even have a relationship with the hyperscaler directly. However, it's in the platform's best interest to create all the tuning requirement to minimize the amount of consumption of that hyperscaler.
For
Now,
sure.
it's not giving you a pricing advantage; it's creating a margin advantage for those platforms. But you can see that why there's a battle between the platform providers and the hyperscalers themselves because of that fact.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wouldn't expect anything different, right? The question is, where do you want, like, everything's a lock-in, right? The question is, where do you want that lock-in to occur, right? Do you want that lock-in to occur at the kind of the wide level or not? Like, do you want more freedom to move from your particular choice of data platforms, or do you want more freedom to move from your data architecture? Like, which one's the one that you want, right? Really, where are you investing? Because if you go with a data platform, the likelihood is you're going to spend less on people than if you go the other direction, right? So where do you want, where is your investment? Where is your spend? Where are you looking to really gain your ROI, right? Are you going to be like questions like, am I going to use pre-built algorithms and kind of algorithmic software, or is there some expectation that I'm going to write and evolve my own, right? Am I going to apply existing ML and AI frameworks, or do I have some new approach, right? And I think that's where it starts to really get interesting in a conversation. And I also think it's a place rife with mistakes. I think a lot of companies think they need to have a boutique algorithm created for their use case, when in fact it's not. They're not even close. They're nowhere near it, right? So
yeah, they're not that advanced to support it. I agree with you that the native, it requires more expertise, more specialized knowledge. However, you now have full access to everything you need, tool set and data and everything else, right? You can command and control the environment where you can't within the platforms, which is why, and this is an observation I've made over the last sort of 3 months-ish, that user-wise, it's far more diverse in the platforms than it is in the native, right? Native, it's mostly developers and data engineers.
Yeah,
In the
for sure.
platforms, it's mostly business users, data consumers, right? Because it's, the hard stuff's done. The only access point I need is SQL. I mean, everybody who creates a visual understands SQL enough to use it, right? Like that's a pretty distinct difference. In fact, so much so, of the two conferences I've been to recently, Snowflake and Databricks, at least 50% of the audience was gender diversified versus AWS reInvent was not.
Right. No, it was like 7% diversified.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm with you. And I would agree. But again, I think it's different use cases, right? And I think trying to, as an organization, shoehorning yourself into one or the other, I don't think is necessarily the smart way to go.
Oh, so you're advocating both. You're not advocating the binary choice.
Yeah, I'm not advocating that it's a binary decision at all.
Interesting.
I think that there are places like I think as an organization, you probably need to pick a horse to hitch yourself to when you're in the kind of early to mid phase. But as your expertise increases throughout your organization, you're likely going to find the edges of the capability that you've chosen, and probably will want to do something else. Right on one side, if you choose the platform early on and you've made that investment, that's great, but your speed is going to be hampered. And so as you increase and as you want to increase your speed, you're likely going to find the edges where things fit that are low code, no codey, in which case you're probably going to have a better experience overall with something like a Snowplow or even a Databricks, right? Where or Snowflake, I mean, whereas do it the other way around, right? And you focus on enabling the citizen data scientists, as much as for some reason people don't like that term. You're likely to find yourself in a position where the edge of what can be done there, and you need to get into something a little bit more boutique. So I think you're just going to fall into an 80-20 rule regardless of which one you choose, right? And it's when you get to that 20th percentile that you have to decide what to do.
If we were to take a little bit of a sidecar here, I think there is some parallelism to the shift between sort of IaaS or infrastructure-centric cloud control versus PaaS or platform-centric cloud control, where I've done the easy lift and shifts, right? I moved bare metal if I had to from my data center to my Oracle on bare metal in the cloud. I've virtualized the same way. I've used containers in a Kubernetes cluster across those two environments. I've created a hybrid environment. Great. But now that easy stuff's done, and I have to look at the modernization of applications for the remaining applications. I'm not likely to going to choose IaaS for that destination. I'm much more likely to consume the PaaS application development services in the cloud. Is that a parallel trend to what we're talking about here? In other words, the native data cloud environments you have much more control in the infrastructure, right? Switches and dials and the storage, switches and dials and the processing, switches and dials on the integration, and you don't have those switches and dials in the platform. Is it the same trend?
I think I think there's similar logic that applies, right? Like the first step in your cloud migration, well, first should be what is the strategy of cloud, but really like your first tactile step should be, or tactical step should be an application rationalization, right? To figure out what is the right end state for each of the things that need a new end state, or do we maintain the existing end state, right? And that's where things like IaaS versus PaaS versus SaaS really start to show their value, right? What should this be versus let's throw everything in IaaS or throw everything in whatever. And I think the same kind of logic applies, right? Now, which way you go about it, how you apply it, I think depends. But you also have to think about what is your data strategy and what is my kind of end state for data, right? For a very long time, we talked about what kind of became a digital vault, right? What is your single source of truth for your data, and where will that single source of truth lie?
Right.
And do you in fact have a single source of truth for all of your data, or is your single source of truth broken up based on the type of data? As in, if you've got a lot of machine data, versus a lot of business data. Do those need to, would those ever go into the same place and the same single source of truth, right? Need them or want them or have the desire for them to be there. And the goal there really should be, how do I alleviate some of the lock-in, as many of the lock-in issues as possible, because my data is, the crown jewels of my organization.
Right. Do you think it's really possible to avoid lock-in? Lock-in is a likelihood, and therefore just pick better lock-ins.
No, but I think, again, I think it's kind of a strategy when you think about those things, right? Like what does this particular lock-in look like, and what is the penalty for making a mistake here, right? And I think that has more to do with the question than trying to avoid lock-in completely, because you're never ever going to avoid lock-in completely.
Right.
There's always some percentage of lock-in. Even if it's just the cost to move to something else and nothing else changes, it's still lock-in. Right? There's still that cost.
So if the first option is native pure, and the second option is platform pure, realistically, neither of those two are options, right? Realistically, option 3, which is a consumption of the marketplace, and I don't want to use the word hybrid, but I'm going to call it mix and match, are more likely to be true. So I'll give you an example. Snowflake was born of being a data warehouse. So one could still use it as a data warehouse in a native implementation, right? You're using a different data lake. You're using it as a data warehouse. The opposite true of data is Databricks, right? It was born of being a data lake. So you could use it as a data lake with another data warehouse, string it together with IAC, and then let's not forget marketplace, right? There's a marketplace of other technologies, right? I can connect into Fivetran, connect into Splunk, connect into Qlik, use multiple visualization tools. So it's probably, or most likely, a combination of parts of a PaaS, parts of a native set of services, and parts of the marketplace strung together.
100%. It's a journey, though, right? It's the same thing we talk about, again, with cloud, right? Make one cloud choice, learn that one so that your organizational competency is very, very high, your capability is very, very high, and you're very comfortable. Get everything kind of figured out, and then figure out what your diversification looks like. Don't try to immediately create a multi-cloud because you know that's going to be your end state. Right. So I would say the same thing, right? When you're looking at what data platform, what data choices to make, platform or native or whatever, take a look at what are the first 10 things we're going to do, and what are those data sources? Are those data sources existing data sources within my organization? Are they structured or unstructured or semi-structured? Right? What makes them up, and how comfortable is my organization working with them? Or are they totally new? As in, we've decided now we're going to add IoT data, and we never had IoT data before. We have a lot more freedom in how we do that. And it's unlikely that we need to enable citizen developers, versus if it's my ERP data and my CRM data, probably going to have some serious, citizen data concerns there. And I probably need to think about those two things very differently. And my destinations may be very different, right?
So if that third option is mix and match, that really makes every single implementation a snowflake. Pun not intended, right? It is unique per client because they're going to use a unique set of tools, unique set of marketplace partners, unique set of integrations. Is that a good or bad thing?
I mean, but isn't everything kind of Snowflake? Like that we do,
well, productivity isn't, right? You're going all in on Office 365. You're going all in on Google Workspace.
Sure,
you don't get a lot of
But all those are basic choices that we make, right?
Yeah.
Like anytime it becomes a complex choice, anytime it becomes a real valuable choice, anytime it's interesting, it also tends to be a bit of a snowflake.
Right.
Right. If it wasn't a snowflake, we wouldn't need software development teams inside large organizations.
So you're saying productivity isn't interesting? Is that what you just admitted to our entire audience?
Yes.
Well, if you think so, when you pick a platform, you don't use the same features in the same way, even though another company uses the same platform.
That is true.
So, so every company, even though they set a standard, gonna create their own snowflake, like you're saying.
Yeah.
And the key, I think, like Howard was mentioning, is what is the tool for the actual work that you're doing. Like you can have a platform that you can move it from different cloud providers, because let's say that you have a commit somebody and you can decide that I want my commit to be, if it's Azure, if it's GCP or whoever, you can say I want the workloads to run in this cloud for that commit that you have. But I think that the question, when I was listening to both of you, was, does it matter? Doesn't
But
matter if you pick one versus the other one if you don't have a clear strategy of what you want to do with it.
But there goes the problem. I think the problem is if I've spent all of my intellectual capital with my team on my application portfolio and managing that and having even a decent understanding of the cloud deployment of that, and I have exactly zero experience in the data cloud platform world and what that architecture and set of pieces look like, how do I even make that decision? How do I determine? Like, in other words, Snowflake Databricks could be the easy thing because at least it's all included. If we're saying that it's much more likely to be a Snowflake, a unique implementation, then I have no expertise. I have no experience. I don't really know what to pick. Now what
well,
do I do?
but I think that's part of the question. Where do you have expertise? Right? Where are you making investments? And look, like it used to be the reason you used consultants was to answer these exact questions, and it became the reason I used consultants is to create PowerPoints.
Right.
And if we just go back to using consultants, what consultants were supposed to be used for, and really, looking at that kind of ecosystem as what it is intended for, it's exactly why you would want a partner that understands how to look at your kind of workshop with you and determine what is your strategy, plan, and execution model look like for the next 18 months. And really, the stuff changes so fast, I can't really recommend longer than 18 months necessarily. But let's say you're looking out 18 months, right? And then help you make the right decision for you for those 18 months. It's not like there's an infinite number of decisions, right? And in as much as it's a snowflake, it's not truly a snowflake in that no two will ever be alike. The chances are you're going to fall into the 80th percentile. That 80th percentile has some truisms to it, and it's going to line up very similar to what others do, right? And if the question is, what do I do first? What I do first is whatever aligns with my big bangs, and my big bangs often align with those things that I'm currently investing in. So where are you currently investing, right?
Hence the big question here. So you don't have that expertise. You need somebody to help you, a partner, figure out what I need to decide based on everything you just mentioned. What do you expect that partner to bring to the table? Do you expect that partner to be an expert in that entire picture that I just painted, or individual parts within that picture, or multiple Snowflake customized implementations of that picture? What's kind of the demand there?
No, I don't expect them to actually be experts in any of those things. I
Interesting.
expect them to be experts in the decision framework itself.
On how I get to the picture, not on the
Correct.
pictures themselves.
Correct. Right. At this point, I'm hiring an architect, right? An architectural firm. I'm not hiring a general contractor.
Right.
So I need someone that can take what's the vision in my head and turn that into an architecture, right? And actually, even I did some building crap in my past life, right? One of those companies where, if it didn't have to do with the core business, like sales didn't do it, service didn't do it, parts didn't do it, then IT did it, kind of thing.
Right.
IT got left over, and so I got handed construction projects. right? And
Right.
it's kind of, the consultants are kind of that first phase of a construction project where, okay, what are we building? What are we doing? What are we describing? What themes are we looking for? How do we want to integrate it into the space? What do we want to highlight? Do we have colors? Do we have shapes? Do we have, architectural themes? And then they come back to you with graphical representation long before
Right.
even blueprints, right? And you get 4 of them to do that, and then you pick the one whose vision matches what's in your head and what you
Right.
desire the most, and whose pricing aligns, right? And then that turns into architectural drawings, and that turns into engineering, and that turns into general contract and execution, right?
Right.
And you need to start with that kind of first step. You need to start with who can turn your vision into a strategy, and then develop a plan, and then find the right execution partners for you. If and ideally they're not doing that,
Hmm.
so there's no conflict of interest, right? Ideally they're not doing anything other than making recommendations for a wide suite of people or helping you vet those you already have.
But speaking on behalf of partners, there is value because there's more money in the build than there is in the design
Yeah.
to follow on as best you can, which means unless you're a giant partner, global with hundreds of thousands of people, it's hard to know all technologies and have all expertise.
Impossible.
So do you have to pick?
Well, I mean, go with
Like
what
do
you
do
trust.
partners have to go in and say I'm going to go all in on something?
I mean, yes, partners should. Like if
Okay.
your job is to provide the technology itself, like you're going to get into the build and execution phase, and that's where you're going to live,
Yep.
because you want to grab that 80th percentile, then yeah, you absolutely have to pick something, and you have to be good at it, right? You have
Right.
to develop a very high level of expertise in it, um, and pick one, not 7.
Right.
And then when you've got that one handled, decide, are we going to be a super dedicated platform player where we know 5 different platforms? Or are we going to play both sides of the fence because we see the value in both of them? In which case, we pick one kind of reference architecture that we get to know and understand really, really well, and kind of 80th percentile that thing out. Right? No
Right.
one's ever going to be 100%, but you should be absolute experts at the 80th percentile of the decisions you make. I think that's a good partner strategy, regardless of what you do.
Right.
And then learn to say no once in a while would be the other thing I'd like to see more from partners.
Exactly.
Right?
You
Like,
can't be 100% custom shop, or
correct.
you'll
Everything to everyone.
you'll never be big enough to support that kind of breadth.
Well, and you'll never be good enough.
Yeah.
Like that's the
True.
thing, right? Okay, cool. I can go to a global system integrator, but you and I had plenty of experience there,
Yeah.
right? All 3 of us did. They weren't actually great at anything,
True.
Mhm.
right? They were
With
really good
scale.
at bodies at
That's
it.
right.
And when you have 240,000 bodies, you have no idea where the one guy is that knows that technology.
Right.
Where the one person is that's really good at that particular language. You have no idea.
Yep.
Right? In a 4,000 person organization, we struggled with figuring out where our smart people in any particular discipline were located. And it was very, very common that just in a 4,000 person organization, we had 3 different teams working on the same thing that didn't even know the other teams existed.
Right.
Right? At a 240,000 person company, it's even worse.
Yeah.
Right?
The
So
peanut butter is spread very thin in that
right.
environment.
Right.
Right. Good. Well, that was very helpful. Carlos, any thoughts on that conversation?
Yeah, so I was thinking Mac versus PC. If you're a gamer, no. So I was trying to say if there will be a simpler comparison. If you're a gamer, you can game on both of them. Well, technically you can with the new GPU on the M2s
Yeah,
is
but
a lot.
they don't write the software for both of them. Like the games aren't even released on Mac most of the time. So any
Well,
true gamer runs on Windows. If you're actually a gamer,
you see,
you
you
can't
see
then
where
go to the MacBook Pro.
that's where I was going. So you're gonna have your hardcore people that gonna say this is a better platform because my expertise laid out on this side. And you're gonna have the teams that gonna say, I will pay more, and that's where I was going. I will pay more for a Mac to do X, Y, and Z that I can do on a PC but they feel more comfortable that they can do it easier and faster in this other platform that you cannot change the components. Both of them gonna deliver the outcome, but the person need to make the decision. In this case, the company need to make a decision, and probably you may need both because for some things you may need to do it better. Like for my production, this station is a PC because for all the connectivity, for all the stuff that I do, this give me a better experience than the connectivity that I have on a Mac, unless that I'm looking for one of the new ones.
I think both is a scale problem, right? The bigger I am, the more likelihood both make sense. The smaller I am, the less likelihood I can create the pragmatic arrangements with the platform and the hyperscaler that make sense for me. In other words, in order for me to pick native, there's going to be an expectation of a 2-year level of consumption. If I were to pick the platform, there's a 2 to 3 year contractual agreement for a month-to-month payment, right? If I try to combine those two, then I'm not going to get this volume savings because I'm not going all in, right? The
Well,
smaller I am as an organization.
yeah, I probably also don't have enough personnel to adequately manage from my
Oh,
side what each one of them does, what the purpose is, the number of internal projects that are running, right? Like there's always, your own scalability. In which case, like if you are that small and you're not a dedicated software shop, right? Again, you're not your business isn't building this piece of custom code, then I would say 80-95% of the time you're probably, looking at platform and should be looking at platform, right? And we'll likely stay just with platform until your organization decides the investment in native is worth the investment in native. But
right.
it's not in neither one of them is insignificant, and two of them doesn't make either one of them less significant an investment,
Right.
right? Versus if you're Wells Fargo or B of A, you're probably in all of them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Like when you're
And have
scaling
the scale to
large.
get the best pricing either way.
Right. So when you're that large, you're likely choosing the right platform for the quarter of an exabyte of data generated by that system.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it's like there is no single answer that works, right? But I will say if you start with one, you never have to make the second choice, but you still have to pick the right one to start with.
Right. All right. That was a good conversation. Nice 30-minute chunk.
Yeah, so definitely make a decision and probably try it. I think that if it's something that your strategy that you want to move forward, get a good partner that probably could help you with, like Howard mentioned, the architecture where it's going, then maybe the same partner or another one to do the implementation, but just try it out. And I think that that's the key, that you have to make a decision to move forward. And I think that this go connected to, I think, 2 or 3 programs when we mentioned what is changing for the technology leadership and how the CIO and the CTO role is changing. Making these decisions are challenging decisions, but sit down around the table with other CTOs, CIOs that can help you think and take those decisions. So, my friends, make sure that you share, you subscribe, and we'll see you on our next episode.